Thank you all. Welcome to the January 21st, 2020 Select Board meeting. Regular meeting at 4 p.m. here in the Jackson Town office. Called meeting in order. And the first item number 2 is approval of the minutes from last meeting, which was last week, January 14th. I'll entertain a motion to approve said minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting last week on the 14th.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion about any of those minutes? Everybody okay with that?
That's good.
Very good. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We also had a non-public pertinent to RSA 91A32A that we came out of non-public and voted to seal those minutes. So that was done on the 14th. So.
I'd make a motion.
Actually, we did that at the meeting.
Oh, we did seal them. Okay.
But
Oh, that's right.
we need to change the date on the agenda, just on the minutes following. I just noticed that it says December 17th.
Yeah.
So just...
Should say January 14th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Item number 3, action items. We have nothing on our docket. Any reports from any department heads, Julie's? No? Alrighty, so upcoming meetings, important ones obviously, getting the end of the season. Oh, I'm sorry. That's bad.
Thank you.
Apologize. February 4th, 4 p.m. here, Selectmen's regular meeting, followed by budget hearing number 2, immediately after that. February 25th will be our second select board meeting of the month, followed by the town elections on March 10th. Town meeting on the 12th at 7 p.m. at the Whitney Center, and the 24th will be our March Selectmen's meeting. Any comments on the action items? Anybody want to add anything? Whipping right through this, we go on to the building inspector and Kevin Bennett. Come on down. 2 building permits today. Plus any comments from you?
Pretty straightforward, yeah. The first one's on Alpine Drive, doesn't have an address yet. Actually, this permit came in during the summer and I had to deny it because they'd never sent me plans. We went back and forth with emails, certified letters, still never got plans, so I denied the building permit. Got a resubmittal recently. They had to fix the elevation of the driveway was too steep. They had to go back to the surveyor, bring up the house 10 feet. That all got situated, so now with the plans, and I went over with the owner all the things that's required in the building code on this house, so we're good to go. So we'll see what happens this spring, or whenever they start to put this house in.
Super.
Have you found anything about a trail right-of-way through that property?
Yeah, I was asked that question, and actually I talked to the fire chief about it, and he made reference to the trail that came off of Thornhill Road, which is the old trail to the top of Thornhill. Not realizing, I didn't realize that that was the trail we're talking about, but I guess it does somewhere go through his property where he has cleared. I don't know much more than that. And I think I talked to Brian Burns on the Conservation Committee about it, and his understanding is the trail's been there since like the 30s probably.
Yes.
And he made reference to something about, I don't know if there was an RSA on it or something about once it's established that they can still basically go through.
Yeah, Pam Smiley had the wording for the legal way to approach that. I can't use those words because they're not familiar to me, but she was really good at it.
There you go. Yep.
If you ever wanted to talk to her, as far as the Conservation Commission, she's interested in that trail. And seeing what legal right of passage the people would have.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at, if you look at a survey of that property from like up, from way up above or whatever, everything to the southeast is just all woods. I wonder if the trail can just be pushed over. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
I mean that's one way. And I could talk. I mean, when this house gets started, I can talk to the owner about it.
Yes.
See where that goes.
And is he building the house?
That's a good question. He said that he has contractors, but You're familiar, it sounds like.
Watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, like I said, that's why I had this itemized list and I went down everything that was required by code, from foundation right to the finish.
Great.
And number 2, 76 Chelsea Farm Road, that's pretty straightforward, just a big remodel. Like I said, what was listed, it was pretty straightforward. That's about it.
Have anything for Kevin?
Nope.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so this one here, item number 5, new businesses. Resolution letter from the state reps. This was voted on at our last town meeting.
Actually, it's 2017.
2017, excuse me, 2017. And this is something we agreed to keep up to date, I guess, and we have to redo this every 21st of January, is that what it says there? So this is this was from Senator Jed Bradley, Representative Burrows, and Representative Butler. And I guess, what was this? Can you summarize this again? It's so confusing to me.
Well, it was something that Betsy Harding had requested, that the town submit a letter every year until the Constitution was changed, that says basically that that businesses would stay out of electioneering or something to that effect.
Okay. And then waiting for them to be amended and ratified by the state. And then hopefully just basically a letter saying that we're agreeing to go through this process, correct?
That we want them to make that change.
As clear as mud, I guess. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'll entertain a motion to sign the letter from Jed Bradley.
No, it's 2.
I'm sorry, 2.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2.
Sure, I'd make that motion.
I'll second the
Any
motion.
discussion on that?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Keep businesses out of the electioneering process.
No Girl Scout.
No Girl Scout cookies.
Started with Granny D.
Granny D.
Oh.
And item 5B is, thank you, is an FYI from the bank regarding our potential bond. This would be for, I'm sorry, these glasses don't work for me, I'm sorry. Well, this was the rates, right?
That
Rate change?
No, that's the one that we have the bond out on the garage, and they made an adjustment.
On the rate.
To lower the one that's going to mature in 2031.
Okay, and it says here we'll have a savings of about $16,270 based on that rate change, so that's favorable. All right, so that's just an FYI.
Thanks.
Okay, so that's good news. Good news on that front.
And then I have one other thing.
Sure, go right ahead.
New business for our information on short-term rentals. The proposals put quite a bit of pressure on the selectmen to kind of orchestrate what we don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm only bringing it up because we, as a board, haven't discussed it. It's coming at us, and I think we should get ahead of it and think about how it's going to impact everything from what it does to the town as far as, rentals, and then what we go through for administration. I mean, who's going to keep an eye on it? Who's going to... there's legislation coming in, Senate
pending.
bill that's coming up that might clarify some of this, that would help us. And then I believe then it goes through the clerk's office. as it is right now, I don't know if it's the building inspector or the fire chief or, us. Where that enforcement process, or even the registration process, originates, where, So, anyway, keep an eye on it.
Being that you're on the planning board as the representative, is there going to be a formal presentation to the board saying what is being requested of us and what decisions we need to make as a board, or is it still in the planning
I'll find out
stages?
tonight. 'Cause,
Yeah, for the next
there
working
is
session,
a
right.
meeting. Yeah, yes, I'm sorry.
Planning board has not scheduled a meeting with the select board. They are tonight having a work session where they will formalize the 5th draft of it. None of them have seen it yet, but it impacts the select board in multiple ways. At the very least, you should ask the board to present what it expects, what the procedures are expecting of the select board. Because they're...
But I don't think anything has been definitively done and a plan that they're
With respect to that, with
recommending.
respect to that process, that is complete. I mean, if you like, I can lightly describe it to you. The procedure is that someone will come to the select board and ask for an application. They would complete the application and present it to the board. The board then would make any comments that it wished to, based on criteria that are described in the procedure, and then forward it to the planning board. The planning board will then review it based on other criteria, send it back to the board with comments or not, and then the board would make a ruling, a decision as to whether they would grant the application or not, would deny it. Either way, there's a 30-day period by which either the applicant or abutters or parties that are appropriately, with respect to it, have standing, would then file an appeal. They have 30 days after the town's ruling to do so. The town would then schedule a hearing, that's the first hearing that would be necessary, to review the appeal and make a ruling, at which time either aggrieved party, either the applicant or an abutter with standing, could then file with the state or with the Superior Court, to challenge the board's ruling. Then, of course, the town would have to decide whether to challenge the Superior Court's ruling, which, by the way, in the past that has happened, where someone has challenged a decision by the ZBA, gone to court, challenged the court ruling, and ultimately won. But it cost the town about $15,000.
That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
And can
Open
you
all
just-
these challenges up to, mega lawsuits.
Can you
Right.
just clarify what the application is for?
The
It
application,
sounds simple, but is it?
and I don't think the board the PB has fully made themselves aware of this yet, but the board, the application is for, under their definition of short-term rental, is a rental that is from 1 to 30 days. Over 30 days, it doesn't do this. But then there was some question as to existing short-term rentals. Would they then become, they're conforming as the law stands now, after the change of the law, would they become non-conforming? And if they are non-conforming, would they then, as the town permits non-conforming uses, some people refer to it as grandfathering, the town permits that. So these, and the PB hasn't decided how they're going to deal with this yet, is that if the short-term rental existed prior to the ordinance, it then would become non-conforming and permitted without having to go through the ordinance. The PB hasn't worked that out yet. But then it also, to muddy the waters, every house in Jackson could say at some point, we rented our house out. We went to Florida and we rented our house. Therefore, every property could be considered non-conforming. So it's something that the PB members haven't even seen yet, because as I said, the final wording of it is expected tonight, hopefully. And then they will tomorrow night, I think, haven't they already
Thursday.
noticed for the public hearing?
Thursday, yeah.
Well,
I think tonight, or Thursday.
no,
working session.
tonight is the work session,
Yeah.
and then the second public hearing is February 3rd.
Right, and that's which tomorrow is the last day to do
They can
that.
post it.
Right.
Tomorrow's the last day they can post that second public hearing,
Right.
and it's gone in.
So
the paper.
they are planning to post a public hearing for wording they haven't even seen yet.
Was there
In the-
discussion on how the abutters are going to be notified of this?
They haven't worked that out yet. And that actually, the abutters wouldn't be notified until an appeal process was initiated.
So they're proposing an ordinance that formally the selectmen haven't even been.
Correct.
given.
That puts on the selectmen burdens. Then you also have to come up as a board as to what you would budget into your budget to handle that process that would involve the office and, you know, so I guess you guys, you folks haven't even worked out what that amount would be yet.
No, and I think there's still a lot of questions to be answered regarding the whole situation. I mean, you know, it's far from, like I said, clear as mud.
Well, one thing that was cleared up is we can't require an inspection of the house.
That's 458.
That's out, so the fire chief and the building inspector.
Did include initially
Right.
in the wording. Somehow then the attorney became aware of 458, which specifically says short-term rentals may not be singled out for inspections unless there is some indication to the fire department or building inspector that a hazardous situation exists, then they have a right to, under that RSA, to inspect.
It'd have to be imminent danger.
Right.
Exactly.
Because we worked on it a lot, and I had a lot of conversations with the fire marshal's office, and they can't even figure out what to do. I'm talking with Kevin today, and if the fire marshal's office can't quite figure out how to deal with this, Kevin and I in that little old 10 by 15 office over there sure ain't gonna figure it out. And we don't have a lot of support from the fire marshal's office, so I don't see as we're ready for any kind of ordinance at all this year. None.
And just as a aside to that, you were mentioning Senator Bradley before. Senator Bradley has offered SB 458, which completely addresses this situation in a very thoughtful manner. I spoke with his office. He's quite sure that after some tweaking that both the House and the Senate will approve it, and the governor's office has indicated that they would sign it. So in 2021, all this would be codified by state 458.
The only issue I can deal with is if anybody felt as though there was imminent danger, like there was a bunch of people sleeping in rooms without windows or sleeping in a building without any kind of smoke detection, then we have authority to go in and work through the process of dealing with it, but it has to be
To any.
You'd have to hear that
To any.
from.
yeah. It has to be
preemptive.
It has to be imminent danger.
And that
It can't just be something.
That can be any home. It doesn't have to be a short-term rental home. But you as a board will be asked to decide whether or not you support that.
Need to hear more, I think.
Well, I'm glad to have the discussion.
Okay. All righty. Any comments from you? Anybody else have anything about that? All righty. Can't wait to read about it in the paper.
Yeah.
All righty. Any other new business? All
No.
right. We'll move on to old business. Any old business? I have nothing on. Anybody have anything to add?
I do not.
Do not? All right, we'll move down to number 7, public comments. Any public comments from anybody? Was this gonna be a record? Record meeting. Really? No public comments? Okay. We don't have any non-publics? Yes. B.
I thought when you put Jay in as fire chief, we wouldn't have Goody anymore. How come he was still employed?
Well, Goody is basically, for very, very special things that, are far beyond maybe Jay's capabilities in terms of electrical things. I'm sure, especially with major business, and I don't mean to speak for Jay, I'm sure Jay can speak for himself, but, I think it's a situation where, you might have like Wentworth Hall, when they redid the elevator and things like that. I'm sure there's some things that are beyond our department's capabilities, and you have to call in a specialist, and that's basically what Goody has been. I don't think we spent a lot of money on Goody. What do we spend a year?
$880 last year.
Huh? How much?
$880.
$880 for that specialized. That was probably Wentworth, wasn't it?
Most of it probably, yes.
Yeah. So it's not something we don't spend a lot of money on Goody. We only call him in when we need to, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
I mean, he's not ever going to be gone unless he retires, but we're going to have somebody replace him, certainly.
He's a really good resource to keep, so I definitely want to keep him on a limited basis. I'll probably cut the budget this year a little bit on that line item. But he's a really good resource to keep here part-time.
And plus, you're gaining more knowledge working with him as well.
That brings up a good point. He also he's a certified instructor, so he does a lot of training for us. I just got off the phone with him 45 minutes ago. And we talked about, I'm trying to get him here the last week in February to come in and spend 4 or 5 hours with me on some inspection stuff that I've been stacking up for a while. And so he can spend 4 or 5 hours doing some training because he's a certified instructor. We save a lot of money by having him as a certified instructor versus sending people to Concord or the fire academy and things like that. He can do it right in town.
Do you know what your budget has been budgeted for him?
It went from 30, 40 grand down to 8 grand. Last year it went down to 4 grand. This year I'm expecting to take it down more than 4 grand, down a couple grand.
And again, I don't think we've ever spent all that money either. I mean, not that we,
Not since I've been fire chief.
Right.
No.
Any other public comments? Alrighty, we do not have a non-public session today, so I guess we'll take a motion to adjourn.